on the ground. I'm not coming down. I want to go higher, higher, higher than that.
Welcome back to the Business is Human podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, and we're here to bring you episodes that blend meaningful work with profitable success. Here to steward what I call the age of humanity. I believe if we transform the way we work, we can transform the way that we live. As always, my friendly request, if you like what you hear, hit subscribe so you don't miss any episode, and leave a review to tell the other humans that they might like it too. Always looking to help you and connect with others. All right, let's get into it, shall we? What if I told you that I have the antidote for fear in the workplace? Would you believe me? Would you trust me? Let's get into it, shall we? Okay, context. This topic came up in my head and my heart from the multitude of challenging situations that my clients find themselves in often as leaders and executives. And as I typically do, I often reflect on what's the common denominator, what's the common factor across all of my client conversations in a week. And as I've accumulated that reflection time, it has settled in my spirit that most all of business is run on fear. I know that sounds oversimplified and overstated, but I have years of evidence that this is true. As I'm now writing a book about this, sort of, about the counterfeit life. We did everything right. We proved ourselves. We worked harder. We got the degree. We got the job. And it doesn't feel right because the things that we were told success requires violate most of our humanity from a nervous system perspective, from a spiritual perspective. The math don't math. Counterfeit is something that looks real, but it's not. And oftentimes, the way that fear shows up in business, it looks real, but it's running our lives in all the wrong ways. And now we've got this job market, this labor market, that I'm seeing literal reports that groups are putting out, whether it's like a CEO roundtable group, not as blatantly in like a major publication, but the word on the street for some leader groups is now's the time to really push and pressure for more out of people because they're not going to leave. The job market doesn't have anything for them. So now's the opportunity. You can just feel however you want to feel about that. But what I know to be true about the science of our lives is that more pressure equals more fear, less productivity. The math doesn't math. They think it does, but it doesn't. And so the only antidote for all of this is for each of us individually to increase our self-respect in huge doses. And that's not about ego. That's not about a blatant disrespect for the work that needs to get done, the rules of the way that work gets done. I mean, I'm not talking about picketing. I'm talking about having enough respect for yourself that you operate differently. Let's get into some of the reality of fear in today's business. I pulled up some stats and trends from ChatGPT. 36% of emerging leaders admit they lead with fear through either micromanagement, imposter syndrome, or creating anxiety. $36 billion in lost productivity every year due to fear-based leadership. Like I said, the math doesn't math. You think it is, but it's a counterfeit leadership style. I'm going to put pressure on, I'm going to create some fear, and then people are going to produce more. Well, maybe for a hot second, and then they're going to collapse under the weight of the fear, and their cellular system just can't. So it doesn't actually work. 43% of workers fear retaliation if they speak up, and 1 in 3 employees stay silent out of fear. So those aren't great stats. And as I said, the science doesn't support this. Fear activates the amygdala, which is the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, which then narrows people's focus into, I need to survive this. And when we're in survival mode, our brain has to shut off some of the functions so we can survive. And some of the things that it shuts off is our creativity, our intelligence. It just is. Chronic fear surges our cortisol, reducing our creativity and decision making. And the opposite then is true, that safety and respect activate the prefrontal cortex, where we get clarity, innovation, and collaboration. We are smarter when we're safe. Full stop, hands down. You cannot argue against this. Well, you can, but you'll be wrong. So fear burns people out, and respect builds people up. Fear reduces your productivity, respect increases it. I want to define self-respect, because if we're waiting on our leaders and our company and our culture and all this other stuff that we talk about like it's a thing to get better before we can be better, y'all, that's just a bad bet. I wouldn't make that one at the track today. Instead, we have the ability to carry ourselves differently in spite of the chaos around us. So what is self-respect? Let's just define it. Self-respect is the truthful recognition of your God-given worth expressed through healthy boundaries and aligned actions. Now, in order for us to live out this definition, we need to believe in the truth versus the counterfeit beliefs that we may have been told or shown that aren't actually true, that we have to prove ourselves, work harder. If you believe in the truth, which is God created us all with worth, we are unique down to our fingerprints on purpose for a purpose. If you believe in your own worth because you woke up today as a child of God, that is the kind of strength and belief that we need to stand tall in our story in the midst of a system of business that wants to capitalize on fear. Because as a child of God, my fear, it's a different way to move through the world. My job doesn't define me. My identity is in how God created me. It's a very different way to wake up each day. And the science says that self-respect, as I defined it, creates stability in the nervous system for better problem solving. You're smarter. You're better. And you're going to go and do better work, which means you're likely going to be safer. That maths. Far better. Jesus modeled self-respect. He had boundaries, alignment to his mission. Self-respect is knowing your God-given worth and living in alignment with it so that fear can't run your life. I have too many conversations with people that have a call on their heart of something that they want to do, change they want to make in their career. And when I ask them, what's keeping you from doing those things or taking at least steps towards it? And it's usually fear of money, safety, security. Work just doesn't provide that for us like we think it does. It's a counterfeit. My Bible says the Lord will provide. And so I want to see more people respecting their God-given worth and the ideas and the things that they have inside of them that they want to do, but also for those that like their job or just want the job for the paycheck, and then they get their sense of joy and pride through other things. Just being able to wake up every day, not in fear, but in respect for yourself because God created you, you go to work differently. I'm kind of playing with these 5 pillars of self-respect versus fear and what they sound like, because the fear is usually based on a counterfeit belief system that we've adopted, picked up somewhere. And the devil loves to use these because it keeps us all whipped up and not being our best selves. But here they are. The first pillar is identity. You know your worth because God created you. It's not based on your performance. It's not based on your title. You know that you have value as a human, as a child of God. This counters the fear and the need to prove yourself. Instead, you know yourself and you decide to be your best self, but not based on somebody else's validation of your worth. Second pillar is boundaries. I protect my energy and increase my impact. This is biblical. This counters fear because you feel confident in those boundaries. And here's what I will do, and here's what I won't do. Third pillar is alignment, also biblical. Integrity beats panic every single time. It counters that fear by standing in alignment with the integrity of your identity, your boundaries. You see how these build, right? The fourth one is humility. I don't know it all, but I need and want to grow. Self-respect is not ego. It's walking in saying, let's work together. I'll share what I know with you. You share what you know with me. And together we will align to do great work together. That counters the fear of being weak, not enough. None of that is real. The reality is none of us are enough or have it all figured out. And as long as we just walk around knowing that, not fearing that, that's healthy self-respect. And then the fifth is abundance. Leading from abundance, not scarcity, will always energetically and otherwise serve ourselves and each other. So fear narrows, shrinks, reduces, and self-respect expands, gets us to stand taller in our stories. Let's not wait, as John Mayer says, for the world to change. Let's not wait for our leader to change or a boss to change or the organization to change because companies should fix fear-based leadership. But too often they still believe that it works. And if they believe that it works, they're gonna keep doing it. And if you're waiting to change the beliefs of a mass amount of people in order for your life to be better, again, that's not a bet I'd make the track today. So instead, life is an inside job. Sounds like the mob, doesn't it? When we stand tall in our story by living in a healthy, abundant, strong sense of self-respect, by knowing who we are, knowing our worth, and being able to protect our well-being, knowing the science of our nervous system and that we need rest and renewal because it makes us smarter. When we lead with integrity, no matter what we see around us, this is when our intrinsic motivation can grow and we're going to have a better life. We're going to get better results. So we don't need what's around us to change for us to change. I have several situations, like I said, this week in conversations. One, a client is literally dealing with so much, I'm going to call it evil. It's some spiritual warfare happening inside her organization. And lies and manipulation and people trying to cover up this so somebody doesn't know that. And it's literally a full-time job to navigate the insanity that's happening around her. And she is fully convicted, integrity intact, and it is rattling their cages. And you can't waver from her integrity. She's like, nope, I won't be bought. I won't admit to something that wasn't true. I am standing tall in my story with integrity. That takes some strength of character and some self-respect. And I love her for it. Now, I also said to her, do you really want to live in that environment every day? Like, I'd probably just go. She's looking at options, but in the midst of the chaos, she is full of self-respect. And my goodness, do I love it. I have another client that is just bumping up against things that need to happen in another part of the organization in order for her to increase her impact and her results. And instead of sitting around whining about it, waiting for the world to change, she crafted a statement and met with the leader of this department and said, we need to work together. I care about you. I want this organization to be successful, and we need to figure this out together. She addressed it, stood tall in her story, full of self-respect, and said, I'm not just going to sit around and be a victim of somebody else's lack of stewardship. With humility, I'm going to step over and say, how can I help you? We got to go together on this thing. So I'm not just here today telling you how it ought to be without examples all around me of people that I'm helping through these scenarios. And some are just bringing me their stories. I'm not their coach, but they're sharing their stories with me. It can be done. And I will tell you the sense of satisfaction that these people are getting from self-respect, it's tangible. So I'm encouraging you because I know it works. So here are some questions, reflection questions that you can take with you today. Where does fear most show up for you in the workplace? You got to name it and claim it before you can do anything with it. And actually naming it, identifying it, creates some safety in your nervous system instead of just ignoring it or not addressing it, just by sitting with it and saying, where does this show up? Then you can decide what to do with it. So where is fear showing up in your workplace? Number 2, which aspect of self-respect that we covered in those 5 pillars, identity, boundaries, alignment, humility, and abundance, do you need to strengthen? Do you need to stand taller in your identity as a child of God versus a vice president or a director? Number 3, how can I stand tall in my story this week instead of waiting for the organization to change? We're not going to John Mayer this stuff. I might just have to use that as an ongoing tagline. So then you can take action. Spot the fear loop. What happens when you address this fear that you just acknowledged through the reflection question? When do you silence yourself or overwork to over-accommodate it, or maybe just panic and shut down? And then reframe that with self-respect. Say to yourself, I know my God-given worth. I'm going to stand tall and live in alignment with it. Fear is not running my life. And then third is anchor that in intrinsic motivation. Do one thing this week because it's aligned with your worth. Have the difficult conversation. Set some boundaries. Say no, whatever it is. Do it with humility. Do it with grace. Do it with love. Do it with intense levels of self-respect. So, fear is cheap. It's cheap fuel that just burns fast and burns people out. Self-respect is sustainable leadership. So don't wait for the company to get it exactly right. Stand tall in your story today. This life is an inside job. And when you live from that place of self-respect, fear loses its grip on you. Business outcomes will still come. It's more profitable. It's deeply human. All right, y'all. That's it for today. Love and mean it.
I'm not coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down.
Thanks for being here. You can follow us on Instagram, Business is Human, or TikTok, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession. It's a great way to share some of the clips with your colleagues and friends. All right. Make it a great day. Love you, mean it.